community over in the laser web groups, also publicly along with the Aux group, open builds, the DIY CNC I follow, but I'm not necessarily active in that one. I also follow a lot in the 3D printing group. Just a little bit about me for now. Just doing a test. Make sure you guys can all hear me. And also working on showing you guys how to do a nice grayscale engrave using laser web. A couple things to note. You need to get to know your laser first. Try downloading a 0 to 100% grayscale calibration image. Run it at different speeds and different power settings. This will allow you to determine some of your better speeds and feeds that you need to be working with in order to get the results that you're wanting. Every material is different, so don't just assume that once you've tried one material it'll work the same for every material. A lot of times I will either go out and get extra material or get scrap material of what I'm going to be working with and do a couple of tests before I even go for a final project. This will save you a lot of headaches when you go to actually run your finished item. For now though, I'm going to be showing you how to edit an image in Gimp Photoshop to prepare it for engraving using laser web. So without further ado, we'll switch over to Gimp and we will get this party started. Hopefully I'm doing this right. I'm trying to work out all the bugs in the streaming software, and I hope we can have a lot more of these in order for me to show you guys what you can do using laser web and a little bit of Photoshop time beforehand. I choose to use Gimp photo manipulation software just because it's an open source software. You don't have to pay anything for it. Go out, download it, it's awesome. For now though, I'm going to be showing you with this image of Captain Kirk. Also note that junk in equals junk out when it comes to using images for laser engraving. So the higher resolution your image, as you can note up here at the top, the better result you're going to get on your final engrave. So make sure you're choosing nice high quality images before you even try to start out with this. On this fresh opening of Gimp, I've noticed that my toolbar's gone over here, my layers are gone over here. So I'm going to open those up by going to the recently closed docs. That will give me my layers. I'm going to go back into Windows and I am going to use a new toolbox. I probably won't use too many layers for this image. This is just going to be a simple tutorial, so we'll just use a single image, but it's nice to have it there just in case you're going to need it. One of the main things you need to realize is you need to have a good contrast between the person that you're engraving and the background. And a lot of times this will mean removing the background. You notice these other images back here blend quite nicely into the object, and it's only exaggerated once you take it into the laser. So in order to remove that, with this image I'm going to choose the free select tool, which looks like a lasso up here in the toolbox, and I'm going to start in the lower left hand corner of his shoulder, and I'm going to make several points trying to follow the outline of this image the best I can. If anything, you want to go just a little bit outside the image that you're working with if you're not comfortable with using this tool. This will allow you to come back in with the blur tool and some of the other tools to allow you to kind of clean up some of the artifacts that are left after you've selected all of this. But for right now, we're just going to go along and choose multiple points as close as to the head as we can, trying to capture the hair and many of the other stray features of this image that would normally be lost if you use a different select tool. Once you get to the top of the image, you can go ahead and go straight across and then continue down the other side of your image until you've finally selected pretty much all of the face and any other features that you want to keep inside your laser engrave. So I won't bore you with too much more of my speaking. I'm just going to continue on with selecting. Alright, now we've gotten all the head traced out. We're going to go over all the way to the corner of the image, click, I'm going to go up to the, we'll do this the easy way. We'll go all the way over to the left hand side of the image and back up to our starting point, making sure that we close this lasso. And right now what we've done is selected all of the person that we want. In order to get rid of everything in the background, we're going to go up here into the select tool and we are going to invert our selection. This will select all the areas that you hadn't selected previously. And we will press the delete key on our keyboard. That'll remove everything that you hadn't selected. If I wanted to even try to draw on this image, I could try to draw all over his face, but it's not going to happen. When you have something selected, it will only draw in those selected areas. So this is another way to help you fine-tune an image if you absolutely need to. Remember to use your hotkeys. Control Z undoes everything that you've done. It does it in steps, so every time you release the cursor on your mouse, that's one step. Every time you click it, that's another. Keep that in mind. Control Z and Control, I believe, Y. Yes, Control Y will redo the stuff you've done. So don't be afraid to make a tweak to an image and then back out of it if you're not satisfied with it. So right now I want to clean up all these hard edges that you see here around the photo that we're working with. In order to do that, we're just going to go up here and select all. So the whole entire frame is selected at this point. I'm going to come in to my eraser tool over here and double click on it. It'll bring up the tool options. There's several things to look at here. Your opacity, that's how much basically pressure you're putting on the tool you're using. So if you put it at 50% opacity, you're only deleting about 50% instead of going straight to white. It'll make more of a transparent image. You have multiple different brush shapes and sizes. I typically like to use the feathered tool for cleaning up outside profiles. If it has to be very precise, I'll go over here and use a pixel tool. For right now, I'm just going to select the small feathered brush. This slider here will change the size of your brush. I don't really mess with the aspect ratio and angles. I typically leave those alone. And for what we're working with, I leave all these boxes unchecked here. So we'll select the size of cursor that will work best for us in order to remove some of this hard outline here. And we'll just start out by slowly removing stuff. And say we actually oopsed, don't be afraid to hold down the control key, press Z. It'll undo what you've just done. This software is very forgiving. You can back up multiple steps, so just take your time with this. It takes a little bit of practice, and as you notice right there, I had another oops moment. So I'm going to show you another tool that you can use to get rid of some of this, and that is the blur tool. The blur tool will help you blend in some of the colors from the item that you've selected into the excess shading, I guess, around the object. Sometimes that's good for real light stuff. We notice we have a nice hard dark line around here, so I'm going to try using the smudge tool. And the smudge tool will pull anything that any color that you start to click on and pulling it into the other colors. That can work really well when you're wanting to get rid of some of this excess stuff here. Remember, you have to unclick and go back into it and drag the color you want into the other one and smudge it. So I've kind of softened up that edge. I'll come back with my eraser tool. I'm gonna go to a smaller brush size using the slider, and that'll allow me to get up closer to the image and remove any of that feathering or dithering. This fuzzy eraser tool will add a little bit of that to it, but in the grand scheme of things, you'll still get a really good engrave out of this. Oops. Control Z, that's my best friend in here. It can be difficult at times to maintain a nice steady hand, especially when you have small children running around while you're trying to do this, which is actually one of the best times to practice your technique, just due to the fact that once you learn patience and how to do this, while you got a bunch of little screaming Hanyakers running around, you can do this just about any time. Alright, we've removed pretty much everything from the background that we don't want. Now we're going to want to turn this into a grayscale image. There's a couple of different ways you can go about doing this. One of them is using the Desaturate tool. And there's a couple of different options here. You have your lightness, your luminosity, and your average. This is just one simple tool that will give you the effect of grayscale. Sometimes it works really great, and other times it's just absolutely horrible. This type of image right here doesn't have very much contrast in it, so using this method, Desaturate, at this point doesn't do us very much good, because if I tried to engrave this, his whole face would look like one dark blob on a piece of wood. So I'm just going to go ahead and cancel out of that. I'm going to go ahead and show you another one of the other tools I use to do this. Another one of the tools I'll use here is image. On the options, go down to mode. Just go to a plain old grayscale mode. I still don't like this image. Yet again, there's a little bit more highlights in it, but still, if you try to engrave this, the majority of his face is just going to be washed out with darkness when you go to engrave with the laser. So in order to fix some of that, you got a couple of different options. One's brightness and contrast, and the other one is curves. I like to usually use brightness and contrast first, and then I can go back and touch up my curves a little bit. But for this, we're looking for a nice contrast in his face to differentiate the features, to highlight them. Some of these features I might have to go back and touch up by hand, but for right now we'll just get our basic image that we're going to go with, and a lot of that's sliding it around until you find a setting that you're happy with. I mean, if you really want to see the wrinkles in his forehead, that's great, but in all honesty, it's just going to detract from when you're doing your laser engrave. A lot of times with laser engraving images, you're looking for an image that is approximately 50% light and 50% dark. That will allow you to have enough contrast in between. You can do a 100% grayscale image here and there, but you're not going to see the contrast, because with certain materials you have almost a dead spot in your range where, say, 30% power to 60% power looks almost identical, and without having nice sharp transitions in your effects, you're not going to get a good engrave out of this. And this is a little too much for me because I'm losing out on some of this detail here, so we'll continue to mess with it until we're happy. I want to be able to highlight his eyes. I want to be able to make out his nose and his lips. So this setting here revealed some pretty good results, but there's just a few areas that I kind of want to touch up here, and especially like the shadow underneath his chin might lighten up a little bit around his eyes. In order to do this, I use the dodge and burn tool. It's fairly simple. When you use dodge, it will take a dark color and make it lighter, and when you use burn, it will make a light color and make it darker, or it take a dark color and make it even darker. You have different ranges you can select. You have your shadows, which will be your darks here. You have your midtones, which is more of what you see in the cheeks here, and you have your highlights, which will be up in the forehead and underneath the eyes. I want to take care of this, which is a shadow, so I'm going to use the dodge tool, and I'm going to take care of the shadows, and I'm going to change my brush size to something a little bit larger so I don't have to do a lot of this. This is another thing that you'll play around with. Remember, Control Z is your best friend when you're doing photo editing. Allows you to undo anything that you're not satisfied with. But as you know, just even after one quick pass with this tool, I've already lightened up this dark shadow in just this one area quite a bit. I'm equalizing things out a little bit. I think this line here is just a little too dark. We'll lighten that up. I think there's some spots in his hair that could be lightened up. I don't like how that looks a little bit fuzzy. I'm going to undo it a couple of steps. I'm going to try using the mid-tone range, and we'll bring out some of the highlights here. I went a little too far with that. I'm going to undo a couple of steps here. The tool I'm using is just a little bit too large for the features I want to clear up. So I'm going to back off my size of my brush for right now, and we will go through, lighten up some of the features. I still think the shadows are a little bit too dark. I'll make my tool a little bit smaller, and we'll lighten up some of the features that we're not satisfied with. Remember, if you go too dark on this, you start burning through multiple layers, and you end up with almost like a depth map on your image. This is a little bit grainy. This is just me playing around just to show you what happens when you do something a bit wrong. So Control Z takes you all back to the very beginning. This is where if you're not happy with some of the dodge and burn sections, but you've already cleaned up some of your shadows, this is where your curves come in very handy. You can use it to select your darks if you want to make it more dark or less dark. A lot of this is just playing around till you're satisfied with an image that'll engrave nicely. Alright. To me that looks pretty nice. Try to think if there's anything else we can do to this to make it look a little nicer right now. Now you have your bunch of filters you can choose from. Gaussian blur works pretty well. You don't want to do very much of it. It can help take out a little bit of this graininess and help transition between the shades of gray. Just be wary though, if you do too much Gaussian blur on this, you're going to feather out these pixels too much and it's going to create a jittery motion when you go to engrave it. And you're just wanting to blend in some of these light and dark pixels that you see here. I don't usually do more than just a couple of pixels on it. This image, if you notice, has a lot of speckling in it. This image will take longer to run if you run it just like this. This is where playing with some of those tools I was showing you earlier, like the smudge tool, can actually come into your favor and help you soften up some of the graininess that you would normally see. And sometimes this graininess, where it's quick transitions from light to dark, will be your biggest contributor to the jerky motions when you're trying to run a grayscale image on LaserWeb. So I'm just going to go through different sizes of brushes and touch up different areas of the face that I think need some smoothing out. Man, a lot of this is just me playing around, so don't be afraid to just start messing around with the different settings until you find something that either looks aesthetically appealing to you or just has the effect that you're looking for when you have your finish engrave. I mean, I've done a lot of these photo engraves, and this is what's worked best for me. My experience may be different than yours, so don't follow me 100% on this. This is a lot of playing around time. Don't be afraid to play around with the different tools. This Photoshop software has a ton of different filters and different tools to work with. And if you're ever unsure about what a tool does, Google is amazing. You can just type in Gimp Photoshop and then the tool name, and a lot of times you can either find a tutorial for what you're looking for or for that specific tool, or you can find out information on exactly what that tool does. So earlier when I zoomed in on this image, you notice how it was very grainy. There's not quite so much grain in this image now. And I'm hoping that'll get a fairly decent result when we engrave. The only way for me to actually know would be to run it. Tonight I actually don't have time to run this image. I gotta work tomorrow. I apologize for that. I'm just trying to work out the bugs in this live feed in order to give you guys the best product that I can. I hope I've helped out a little bit here, and I hope that on this next live tutorial that I do, I will be able to actually engrave the image for you, show you the result, and do some post-processing of this image. But for now, enjoy using Gimp photo manipulation software. Have fun, play around with some of those tools I just showed you. If you're curious about some of the other tools that are available, don't be afraid to Google it. Google's your best friend. There's also a ton of YouTube help out there on getting to know these types of softwares, but I mean, just remember, Control-Z is your best friend. You can back up through your mistakes until you fix it. And hope you guys have a great evening. Hope I wasn't too boring, and I hope you guys can hear me loud and clear. Please let me know if you can't hear a word I'm saying. You guys have a great evening.